Okay, I think we're live now. Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Thrive Talk Live. Tonight I'm going to be with Barry Overton, and he is going to be another speaker at the Blessed Unstoppable event on January 24th with Billy Osbrooks, Jake, I forgot his last name. It'll come
Nick,
back to me. Yeah, Jake Nicks or Nick, and also Jeremy Davis. So tonight, we're going to do Thrive Talk with Barry Overton, just to give you a little taste of who he is and what he'll be talking about. Also at the Blessed Unstoppable event that we're super, super excited about. If you haven't gotten your ticket and you're in Miami or anywhere near down here, get your ticket at blessedunstoppable.com. But I'm super excited to be here tonight with Barry. If this is the first time you and I meet, my name is Sarai Nammur. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. I am also the founder of Trinity Community Mental Health Center in Miami and the nonprofit called Circle of Champions Worldwide. My passion is helping people overcome adversity and actually turn their adversity into their triumph. And this is what I do day in, day out, all the time, every day. This is what I live for. This is my thing. And with Circle of Champions Worldwide, what we do there is we provide education on positive psychology, which actually helps you get to your greatness. And that's what Barry Overton is all about as well. We were just talking about that, and we're so aligned in that way. It's so awesome. And if you guys know, if you've been following me, you know that I've been doing Thrive Talk for the past, I don't know, maybe a year, a little bit over a year. And my whole purpose with Thrive Talk is to bring you the good news that no matter what you've been through, no matter what they've done to you or what you've done to yourself or what has been said to you, you still have greatness inside of you, and you still could become everything that you were born to be. It's not true because you went through trauma, went through things. You know, the news loves to tell that, you know, if you went through this, you're going to be a drug addict. If you went through this, you're going to be a killer, or you went through this, you're going to be a bad person. When in reality, that isn't true. Trauma touches majority of us, seven to eight people out of 10 say that they have experienced childhood trauma, and they turn out to be great people who give back. So every week I show you proof of that, bringing someone who is doing that actually in their life. And tonight we have Barry Overton. And Barry is, I'm going to have him introduce himself, but I just want to tell you he's an author. He's an inspirational, motivational speaker. He was a police officer for 20 years. Now he does real estate. He's been doing that for another 20 years. He just released his book called Ignite Your Greatness. So we're keep talking about greatness, but I'm going to let him do a little bit more of his introduction so that you could get to know him a little bit better. So go ahead. You could introduce a little bit more of yourself.
Thank you so much, Sarai, and thank you for having me here. I've been watching and a part of the Circle of Champions Worldwide on Facebook for quite a while, so I'm glad that we were able finally to connect, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in about a week and a half as well. Yeah, so really, you know, again, 26 years in law enforcement, 20 years as a real estate agent, 25 years in entrepreneurship. And when you start adding those up, you're like, how old is this guy? And, you know, the reality of it is one thing that I learned, and this was from a lesson as a kid that took me into adulthood, is the bottom line is I had some things that I gave up on as a kid, and I had regret about it when I became an adult. And I just told myself, if there's something that I want to do in life, that I'm just going to go out and do it. And, you know, if I have multiple things that I want to do, I'm going to do those things. And that brings me the most happiness and fulfillment. And, you know, it takes me back to my childhood of growing up in a single parent household. My mom did a great job raising me, but the odds were a lot of times stacked against us in regards to housing and finances and the places where we could live at. And, so I grew up on Section 8 housing, and we had a period of homelessness because my mom had some illnesses when I was younger in life. I had some periods where I had to either stay with family members, or even some instances where I was in foster care facilities for a period of time. And, I think as a kid, kids are pretty resilient, and I think I just kind of rolled with it. But it was as I got older, I just kind of realized the life that I did have, and not really looking back on it with sadness, but just looking back on it really with gratitude in regards to what I've been able to experience since growing up. Because I also, I had role models in my life. I had an uncle who was the first Black sergeant, police or lieutenant and captain of the Austin Police Department. But I also had folks, family members, friends that were on the other side of the tracks. And I had some choices that I could have made in regards to my future. And one thing I didn't know this when I was a kid. I learned it as an adult about setting goals. And even though I didn't know the principles about setting goals, the universe, God has a funny way of working that when you're working in the right principles, things will still fall into place, even if you don't know what you're doing. And what I did is I set goals, and the goals, I always told myself, okay, the decisions that a friend is making about going to do something illegal, and he wants me to come with him, does this align with my goals? And when I said, no, it doesn't align with my goals, I didn't do it. So it made it so easy to not succumb to peer pressure and things of that nature as a kid. And, I fortunately found success with just making the right decisions and starting my career. Part of the reason I am 52 and I've had such a broad career path is because I started early. I started in law enforcement at 18 years old. So it's certainly been an amazing ride in this thing we call life. And I'm, just really looking forward to the rest of it.
And what attracted you to law enforcement, I wonder?
The biggest thing for me was my uncle being in law enforcement, because, once again, growing up and having these challenges in life, I was always looking for the success story. And, you would see it, because my first dream, that thing that I quit on and I had the regret for, was playing pro football. I wanted to be in the NFL. And I played football from the age of 7 up until about the age of 15, 16 years old. And I got to a point where I just got burned out on it. I had some injuries and I quit. I gave up on it. It wasn't a matter of being injured and not being able to play. I was injured and I didn't like the fact that I was injured. And I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. And I had so much regret over that in my 20s and 30s. Because I have a lot of friends that have had stellar NFL careers. And when I'm around them, I always think to myself, man, what if I would have stuck with it? What would have happened? But I did make a decision when I gave up on the football. I told myself, okay, I have to find something because I have to have I was always goal driven, even as a kid. And at 17, I enlisted into the U.S. Army. And I told him I'd only go into the Army if I can be a military police officer, because I want to be a police officer when I finish. And I got that position. I stuck with it for 3.5 years. And from there, I went into civilian law enforcement. I was with a small department in Alabama for about 2 years. And then I went to Denver PD, where I spent 21 years with Denver Police Department.
So, so far, we've only been in here like 10 minutes, let's say, but so far, like you said, you started off saying that children are so resilient, and that's partially true. But what I see in you is that we all survive, kids survive, but there was something different about you. And I already saw it within 10 minutes. And the difference that I see is that you said you were setting goals. you had gratitude, you had good role models, and yeah, there were rough things happening for you, but you had all these parts that sort of had you like going in the right lane. Like for you to say like, and I was making good decisions when people were going out, you're like, well, that doesn't align with what I'm trying to do. And not everybody has that.
Yeah.
Not, believe me, not all that, especially kids, and especially if they're going through stuff, not
Yeah.
everybody has that. So I don't want to minimize the uniqueness about you, the uniqueness that you have as far as making good choices for yourself. Because, and I'm pretty sure you've probably have your share of bad choices, but from what I'm seeing, you're someone who was more wanting to make good choices, positive choices for yourself that weren't going to bring you down. Like, do you think that's accurate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, I can't even explain at, 12, 13, 15 years old, how I was able to make those decisions. But one thing I've learned again through personal development is I really don't worry about the how. I just focus on the why. And that's, when I go back and I think as a kid, making those decisions at such a young age and having a vision, literally having the next 10 years figured out of what it's going to look like. It was really just truly a blessing from God that he put it in me to be able to do that at such an early age.
Do you think like what you went through as a child, like as far as like, everything you described, like having your mom was a single mom and the struggles, the financial struggles, plus her being sick and you were displaced and you were in different homes and all of that. Do you think that has something to do with birthing that thing in you where it's almost like you took responsibility for your life through this vision? Do you think
Mhm.
that had something to do with it? Like you wanting to take control over it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I had a lot of experiences that helped. It caused me to grow up very quickly. I mean, I, saw a guy that I knew that was a homicide victim when I was probably 12 years old. And, just some of the experiences that I had caused me to be in a place of, number one, I think making those decisions along the way. And, I always joke around when people ask me, well, man, you said that you had friends and family that were on the wrong side of the law, and then you had your uncle that was on the right side. What made your decision to do the right thing? And, I often tell people, I don't look good in an orange jumpsuit. So, I look better in blue. So but truly, again, I was afraid of, because I had friends that went to jail and juvenile
Right.
hall, and I didn't like the idea of that. So I think I was always thinking of the consequences of something. And then I was also thinking about if I do positive actions and they give me positive results, being able to go after those positive results instead of the negative results.
Yeah, your story, honestly, like your story really resonates with me so much, so much. I was a lot like that, even though like I grew up the way that I grew up. There's over here, there's a city called Hialeah, and whoever's watching this will know if they're from Hialeah, they know what I mean. And I went to 7 different schools. I told you that earlier today, and there were
Mhm.
so many people that I grew up with that went to prison or didn't make it. Just they were murdered or something like that. And I understand. I could really get your story because what you're saying that's how I was too. And I ended up leaving at 21. I moved to California. I just needed out, and I just didn't want to just continue with the path that so many people around me were doing, and which was almost it was going to end up being almost like my only choice. So I had to
Yeah.
escape. I basically had to take responsibility as well and just do something different, like radically different, which moving to California was radical.
Mhm.
That was so radical. You really have to do something radical to break the cycle and to break, whatever path is like almost like you're destined to be in this path. And the only way to break out of it is to make a radical move. And you just have
Yeah.
to do that sometimes. And it sounds like you've had some radical. What do you think has been your most radical move?
I would definitely say so. 7 years ago, almost 7.5 years ago, I retired from the police department, but I did it 10 years early. So what that meant is that when I retired, I didn't have a pension to fall back on. My pension, I'm 52 now. My pension doesn't kick in until I'm 55. So, and in Denver, I was making six figures. I started making six figures as a police officer at the age of 28. And every year after that, I was making six figures a year. And I got involved in a direct sales company there that I had some success with. And I made a decision 10 months after being in that company that I was going to walk away from what they, I remember a friend of mine saying, man, you're going to walk away from this guaranteed job to do something that, you don't know what it's going to lead to. And I said, yeah, because see, when he said job, J-O-B, just over broke, that's what I heard. So when he said guaranteed to be just over broke or go out and really run after my dreams, yeah, I'm gonna run after my dreams. Because once again, I went back to my thoughts of childhood, of that regret of giving up on my dream of playing in the NFL. And I can tell you that for me, every day since I've left, there's been great days, there's been good days, but there's been, a particular year that there was some terrible days, since 2013, but not one day of regret, not one day of, man, I wish I would have stayed with that job. I had people when I was going through that challenging time that were like, you can go back and get your job back. And, that was all, they were almost cursing at me to say that. I was like, no, I'm allergic to jobs at this point, So,
yeah. Funny. I totally feel what you're saying. That's why I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I could imagine them telling you that, and they're doing it with such great intention, and you would probably get pissed off every time you heard that. Every time you're like, "What?
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about? Did you not get it?" Oh, that's so funny. I totally get what you're saying, and it almost makes me feel like that first regret had a purpose to it. Like you had to go through that so that you could say, I'm never gonna give up on my dream, because who knows what's ahead of you. Like maybe that needed to happen for your real purpose to be birthed, because otherwise what would have happened? Like this book would have never happened. Like who knows we're just at the beginning of this with you, right?
Oh yeah, you're so right, Sarai, on that, because that's how I look at it. I look at that experience is the thing that is the driving force for everything that I do now and, probably 35, 40, 50 years from now. And I know I say 50, I'll be 102 in 50 years. But I kind of made I heard Billy last night talking about he made a deal with God. Well, that's another area that me and Billy connect, because I always like to say, again, I'm a realtor, I negotiate. I made a negotiation with God. And it was really when I woke up and realized, okay, I am going to live every day in my purpose, in my calling that you have brought me here for. And I said, all that I ask you is give me another 50 years. Because see, I didn't figure this out until I'm 45. So I'm like, I'm kind of late in the game to figure this out. So give me another 50 years. And how I look at it is every morning that I wake up, God is holding his end of the bargain. See, he said, all right, you got today. So that means I need to hold my end of the bargain and work in that purpose. And that's truly, how I live my life. I can tell you that there's so many different things that I have going on right now, business wise. And, again, I don't try to figure out how I'm going to do it. I just do it. And I don't, again, I feel the moment I feel like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this. And I start thinking, I go right back to that childhood dream that I gave up on. So yeah, it definitely is a driving force to everything that I do now.
Yeah, that needed to happen for you. And also you remember it. I mean, I think earlier you told me one of the first books you read was Think and Grow Rich. That was like one of your life-changing books. And for me, that wasn't one of the first books I read, but it was definitely one of the most impactful books that I read. Like I always recommend that book to everyone. But in that book, it actually says that it's in your 50s and on where we're most successful. So
yeah,
we got people out there, it is a good place to start. And you're starting with so much experience, life experience.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that because what I've learned, especially in this day and age that we live in with all the digital technology that's available. Look, I mean, the fact that we're hosting a TV show live on a digital platform right now. We couldn't have done this. We couldn't have done this 7 years ago when I retired. Facebook Live was not around just 7 years ago. So what I look at it as, okay, I'm 50 years old, and a lot of people my age and right around my age, they have a mindset of, well, I'm too old to figure out this technology. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And my thinking, once again, is, okay, God has put all these amazing instruments in front of me, because once again, I told him that I made that deal. I'm going to do, what you called me here to do, and inspire as many people as I can, as long as you give me, each day, to do that. So I can tell you on my phone, the videos, apps, and all that kind of stuff, anything digital, I'm either going to figure it out, or I'm going to hire someone that can help me figure it out and utilize that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, even though I'm 52, I feel like I'm 22, and I run, and on a daily basis with the dreams that I have right now.
That's awesome. I love it. I mean, I'm so inspired right now. I hope everyone out there is. Sandra McDowell Smith, is that your friend? McDowell Smith? She's on here. She says,
Okay.
Is that because we are more mature with a different mindset? People believe Think and Grow Rich talks about this, but they believe that if people are most successful in their 20s, but no, in your 20s, you're learning. In all my 20s and into my 30s, I was still doing so much learning. And even if you're going to school and you graduate, I finished school. I finished my master's degree when I was 29, but that was just school. Then I had to learn. I had to do the real learning afterwards, which took at least till 35. I was learning how to apply what I learned in a professional way. But just as far as maturity goes, like my 20s were an extension of my teens, and it was me still trying to survive and heal from all my own trauma. So it wasn't until like 35 where I finally felt like, okay, I'm grown up now. I'm grown up now. I'm 35, and now I feel it really wasn't. And I'm 51, so it wasn't until 35 that I was like, okay, now I feel like I know a little bit more of what I want. So it's so reverse, like what people believe at what age success is. And I really do believe that now is the best time. I feel better than ever. I feel better than ever, smarter than ever, more confident than ever, more resourceful than ever, more everything than ever.
Yeah.
It's not. Don't believe the hype, guys. At 50, you're not old.
I actually, when I turned 50, I created a music video. It was to a Neo song called Champagne Life. But the first part of the video it's called 50 is the New Me. And again, 50 is that number where people, you either embrace it and fall in love with this amazing age, or you start to, again, feel depressed and have midlife crisis and all these different things. And I can tell you that I became alive at 50. And like I said, I'm being mentored by Mr. Les Brown. And one of the things, at 75 years old, he'll be 76 next month. And at 75 years old, he is on YouTube live, probably 3 to 4 times a day. But then in the behind the scenes, he has courses and classes that he's doing on a daily basis. And his children, he has 10 children. His children tell him, Dad, man, you're 75. You're still over, coming, battling cancer and getting over cancer. You should just be taking it easy. And his thinking is much like my thinking. Yeah, much like your thinking is that, no, I'm getting everything out of this life I possibly can, and I want to inspire people. And he said, if I'm locked in my home right now, he built a team of people where, you know, he has all these different courses that he trains on, and he trains live. They're not, you know, courses where you just hear his voice. He's on there, and he is, you can see he lights up when he hears a new story. But what I've learned from him is, okay, you know, this whole word retirement, you know, I retired from a job, and that's the only retiring I'm going to do, because it retired me from working for someone else. But I can't look at life at, okay, when I become 65, I'm going to retire and do nothing. I can't imagine a life like that, of not doing anything. And when I see Mr. Brown, and when I see Warren Buffett, who is 90 now, that still shows up to his office every day, I'm like, yeah, that's what life is going to be like for me, because I want to work in purpose constantly.
Yeah, yeah, that's so powerful, and it's so true, because look, John Maxwell is the same thing. Tony Robbins is now in his 60s, and they just want to give more. They actually don't want to stop. They just want to keep going. And that is the worst advice. You're 75. You need to relax. Why?
Yeah.
We have eternity to relax. Why? Why now when I still have breath and a heartbeat? Like, that doesn't make sense. That's the worst advice. That, I mean, I don't know why people do that. It's not, but you know who does that? Younger people.
Yeah.
Because they have an idea of how it should be. And you know, what is it they say, when be careful not to should all over yourself.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your book. Like, what was your inspiration for your book? Tell me a little bit about that.
So, yeah, and I'll go back a little bit. So, as you mentioned, Think and Grow Rich was the first motivational book that I read. I've read it 6 times. And the last time that I read it, what I did is I started actually, I would read the principle, you know, again, understanding, writing your goals down. And what I've learned is, a lot of times people read books and they'll say, man, that was a good book. They learn all these different techniques, principles, but they never apply them. So what I did is, at the end of each chapter, whatever I read about, I started applying it in my life. And I saw the changes when I started doing my daily affirmations, and then writing my goals down in the morning and writing them in the evening, and having these mastermind sessions with different people in my own mind. I saw just, you know, the amazing growth that it created for me. So, and then the other part, I was introduced, you know, through YouTube, not in person, to Les Brown. And I heard the words that we've all heard from him before: there's greatness in you. And I remember in 2008, that went in one ear and out the other. But around 2010, 2011, all of a sudden it was sticking right in my brain. And I started thinking about it. It's like, is there really greatness in me? Me so special that there's greatness in me. And then I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? People do tell me that I'm special with this, that I have this talent for this. And I was like, well, maybe there is greatness. And then I just continued to really dive in and understand greatness. And what I learned from it, and my interpretation of what greatness is identifying your gifts and talents, and honing the craft of those talents, that you can share them with the world, and you will inspire other people. Just to give you an example, Michael Jackson is considered to be one of the top performers that the world has ever seen. There's so many people that are not dancers or singers that have been inspired by him. That was his gift. He didn't inspire everyone to sing and dance, but he used his gift to touch and inspire people. Muhammad Ali, I never stepped one day in a boxing ring, but my biggest inspiration in life probably is Muhammad Ali. And it's because of what he did, not only in the ring, but then the voice that he had outside of the ring in the 60s. And so that's, you know, when I learned and understood, okay, I need to identify my gifts and talents, hone that craft, and then share them with the world. And the funny thing is, your gifts and talents, for me at least, were my calling, my purpose. And I was living in it my entire life and didn't know it until I was about 47 years old. And at that time, I realized, okay, I served in the Gulf War. I served during wartime. I served as a police officer in real estate. I served my clients when I was in network marketing and building huge teams around the world. I was a servant leader. And I realized that my biggest fulfillment and passion comes with service to others. And that's what I'm doing on this platform now, is being able to share with people that we all have greatness inside of us. And so that was really kind of the journey that I took on greatness. Now in the book, and I'll kind of let you jump in here, but in the book, the first part of the book, because I'm a police officer, I spent 17 years as a police detective. And I learned that, okay, when I go into a court of law, I have to build a case. I have to prove my case beyond a reasonable doubt with facts and evidence. So that's how I approach the book. Is I'm talking to my reader and I'm telling them there's greatness in you. I am going to prove it to you. And I built a case around that, of being able to prove that we all have greatness in us.
I love that. Hello?
Yeah, it's it's definitely been a piece of work that I think everyone that has read those first couple of chapters can really understand. Say, man, you make a very good point. It was, and it was actually a point that I heard Mr. Brown say many years ago, and we had a conversation about it. And it was like, man, I have never heard it explained that way. And what I'll share it with you. So one of the things I talked about is, we all talk about the odds and beating the odds when it comes to, life. And so I break down the book, like there's the odds of being struck by lightning. It's 3,000 to 1, the odds of someone being struck by lightning in their lifetime. The odds of being bit by a shark, it's like 3.1 million to 1. The odds of winning the lottery, it's 175 million to 1. But here's the thing, the biggest odd in life we have all beat, and that is the odds of being conceived are 400 million to 1. The odds of being born, based off of what Mel Robbins has said, is 400 trillion to 1. But yet and still, we are all here. We have already beat the biggest odd in life. I don't know anyone that's won the lottery. I don't know anyone struck by lightning. I don't know anyone bit by a shark, but I know a whole bunch of people that have beat one of the greatest odds there is. And if that's not greatness, if that's not, having a purpose, Mark Twain said it best, that the two most important days in your life are the day that you were born and the day that you find out why. And that day that you were born is important because it's the proof that you were made and created in greatness. And I can tell you, when you find that person that finds out why and the purpose that and the drive that they live their life with, that's where you see the specialness in people. That's what, Les Brown, when your kids are telling you should take it easy and retire, and you're like, no, I'm up at 6 a.m, down at 11, and I'm getting it in that whole time because I got to inspire people. I got to touch the next big speakers of this world before, because I don't know how much time I have. That's truly greatness right there.
And you know what? Like, hearing you speak is like, I know I'm listening to you, but it's inside of me. It's so exciting because you talked so much, like you talked about leadership and everything. And I think it takes people like us to get the torch and start running with it and that's why I do Thrive Talk. It's about giving everyone the news. It's like basically the same news you're saying, but what I want to say is, like, yes, we made it. We're here. We were born, and the odds were against us. Absolutely were against us, right? But we made it. But then the minute you're born, what happens? That there's something coming against us. And people who are biblical and Christian, they say the enemy starts wanting to, like, not let your greatness come out. So I think we're like also warriors for God, because we're giving the news. We're actually fighting against that by letting people know, hey, you do have greatness within you, and it doesn't matter what happened to you. I know people that have come from such severe addiction that you would think, you know what, it's almost better for them to pass away because they're in so much pain. But then those same people could clean themselves up and give so much back. So it's like, we're no one to judge that. We're no one to judge when it should be over for someone, or to even judge someone what their worth is. Because I've seen it happen time and time again, that once you start believing the news that you and I are giving, and that we're going to be giving at the event, and when people, like you even said it yourself, you were hearing it, but it wasn't until a few years later that it started sticking. Something opened up inside of you that needed to hear that. So our job is to just keep slinging it, and just keep slinging it, and just keep slinging it, and it'll stick to who it's gonna stick to at that time. And then there are people who can't hear it. But it doesn't even matter. Look, even in therapy, I know that in therapy, you might not be working through what we're doing in therapy, but in 6 months from now, something could happen that you'll be like, oh, now it makes sense. You know, what I talked about 6 months ago makes sense now. And so our job we're only there to planting seeds. And that's what I see us doing. Are you frozen? I think you froze. Yes, he's frozen. But anyway, guys, if you're still listening to me, I think we're here to plant seeds, and we're here to be leaders in giving this information and giving the good news that there is greatness within you. He'll be back. Are you back?
All right. Yeah.
I kept talking, but I was saying that I think people like us, that we have been we have an idea of what our purpose is, and not only do we have an idea, but we've also stepped into it. Because a lot of people have an idea, but they're afraid to step into it, because once you get a glimpse of it, it looks so monumental that you're like, "Ooh, I don't know if I could do that." But once you get the courage to step into it, our job is to plant those seeds so that we could like awaken people.
Yes.
You know, that's our job, is to shake them up, wake them up to their greatness, like you're saying. And there's like a verse, I'll find it, but I think it's Luke 4:18 and 19 that says that. And I read that over and over again because it speaks to me. We're here to heal the brokenhearted, to give light to those that have lost sight. And I forgot what else. I can't say the whole thing, but it is so powerful. You got to read it, because it'll, if you read that daily, it'll feed into like what your purpose is, because we have that purpose. That's our some people are meant to be nurses and doctors but I think our job is to like speak to people's soul and their spirit and say, hey, you're in there. Take over the body. Like, take over the body. You know, that's what trauma does. Trauma gives us a spiritual death. And by spiritual, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about spirit, our spirit. We're not humans. We're spirits. We're spirits in a human form, but we're truly inside a spirit. So we're here to wake up the spirit, to let them know that this was the message of the greatness. I can't wait to read your book. I'm excited.
Yeah. You know, and you are so speaking my language right now. When you talk about spirit, there's a part of the book where I then talk about where greatness lies in the body. And here, I think you may have seen the cover, but for those that haven't, this is the cover, and you notice this beam of light that's coming from my chest. Well, that's not, me, being benevolent or anything like that. That's me saying this is where greatness lies inside of us. I truly believe that next to the heart, there's what we call the pericardial cavity. This is the space where doctors would tell you it's the space for the heart to be able to contract back and forth as it beats. So it has that opening. But my belief is that's where greatness lies, because see, the heart is the driving force for the body. And, you think about it, if you were, someone was in an accident and they were, say, brain dead, they can still be alive because the heart is driving the body. But you cannot stop the heart. The heart cannot die and the body live. The brain will die and every other organ will eventually die. So while our brain is the computer and it helps us to make the decisions and create the mindset, It's the heart that's the battery, that's the charge in us. So it makes sense that greatness would lie next to the driving force. And when you think about, you see a boxer, I'm a big boxing fan, or you see a football team or something like that, where, you have a boxer that's getting beat in a fight, and all of a sudden he digs down deep inside and he starts winning and beating the other opponent, knocks out the other opponent. And they say, man, this guy has heart. Well, we all have a heart, but it's only a few that they can say they have heart. But we all have heart as well. It's just a matter of being able to bring that out. Having heart is really just having greatness and being able to expose it to the world. So when you're talking about the spirit, I truly believe that we each, have this amazing spirit that was put in us, that all, when we got here, had that purpose of finding our goals and dreams. But it's like you said, as soon as we get into this world, this is the world of the enemy. He is the ruler of this world. If you ever read Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil, he tells you in that book, call me your majesty, because I am the ruler of this world, and I rule through one thing, and it's fear. And typically when I read that book, and I thought to myself, what are all the things that I gave up on in life? What are all the things that I said, I put it off or something like that? And I could put every one of them to some type of fear or doubt that I had in myself in regards to that. And I was like, man, that was the devil at work right there. And now I look at it from a perspective of, anytime there's an inkling, anytime there's some doubt that creeps in mind, I was like, oh, not today. You can't have space in my mind. So yeah, I'm it on.
Now, you're freezing. Are you there? But yeah. Now I can see, like, the more we talk, the more revelation I'm getting about you and I being aligned, because the book, I think Not Think and Grow Rich, the one that you just mentioned, he talks about drifting. And maybe that's something we should also tell people. Like, drifting is when you start moving away from that thing that's calling you and pulling you, and you let your mind go to work, and you start believing the mind instead of the heart, like what you're describing, Barry. And drifting, when that happens, the devil takes over. And Barry's not here. I want him to come back. Let's see if he comes back. But guys, what's the name of the book that he just said? The Devil. I forgot it. But anyway, he'll come back. But he explains in the book that when drifting happens, we move away from our greatness, because we move away from what's calling us. We move away from our goals. We move away from the things that we know we're meant to really be doing. And when we move away from those things, we start feeding into the fears. We start feeding in, or we start getting weaker. And that is such a good point. I'm so sad he's gone right now. But if you want to get a copy of his book, let's give him a minute to come on. His book is at igniteyourgreatness.com. And Barry's also going to be a speaker at our event on January 24th, the Blessed Unstoppable event with Billy Osbrooks, Jake, and I'm forgetting everybody's name right now. And Jeremy Davis, that's who it was. But let me see some of the comments. Matt says, I had to learn failure because I learned how to get on the path of greatness. I had to learn failure. Exactly, Matt. That's how it is for all of us. Our pain has a purpose. Actually, our pain is whatever pain you went through in your life is actually giving you a big clue as to what your purpose is meant to be. And that's my belief. I believe that for people who say that they don't know what their purpose is in life, let's look at the things you've been through. Let's look at your traumas. Let's look at your adversities. Let's look at the major things that you've overcome. And that will provide you with a clue as to what you're really meant to be doing in life, what your purpose is, and type of thing. And a lot of times our purpose isn't even our passion. A lot of times our pain turns into the passion. Pain builds character. Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to meet you. Let's see who else said something there. It took me 23 years of darkness and addiction to finally see the light. Well, how could you turn that, Mark? How could you turn that, all the stuff that you learned during your addiction? Because you have a very unique, you have unique skills, and you also have a very unique knowledge, because you know the talk that happens before you use. You know so much. You have so much information, and if you were able to break that down and also break down like what it took for you to get to where you're at now, that's the roadmap for somebody else to see their way to the light that you're talking about. You said you finally saw the light. Well, how could you lead people from the dark to the light? What did it take for you to go from dark to light? And if you were to write that out and put thought into it, imagine how many people you could help on their path to seeing the light. Well, I don't know what happened with Barry. I guess he got disconnected, but we were having a very powerful talk. And if you're in Miami and you haven't gotten your ticket, go to blessedunstoppable.com and get your ticket. And thanks you guys for everyone who showed up tonight. It was a really, really great interview. And I'll be putting it on YouTube. Have a good night, everyone.